You're listening to Contesting Wrestling, podcast where we try to understand why anybody should carve time out of their day to watch wrestling, because that's something that I don't understand why anybody should do. My name is Evan Burke. I'm a writer. You can find me on Twitter at Evan Burke, etc. That's Evan Burke, ETC. I am very tired. We are recording this on June 8th, and, as everybody should be, my attention has mostly been on the revolution that is happening. So listen to the minisodes for us to hear us talk more about current events and stuff like that and what's going on. Today is going to be very different, because today we're just going to be talking about The Undertaker some more. So if you need a respite from reality, we're here for that.
It is almost hilarious that we're covering The Undertaker right now, I do want to say.
Yeah, it does feel a little ridiculous, but I said...
No, Evan, you might not even know this, but Undertaker IRL likes to wear Blue Lives Matter shirts.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
not good. We at Contesting Wrestling do not think Blue Lives Matter, because you could just get another job.
Yeah, we're all supposed to have second backup jobs, right?
Yeah. Well, all jobs matter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
Yeah.
All houses matter, so why are you just paying attention to the one that's on fire right now?
In this storm and the chaos and everything, we're still putting these out because, we need a brief moment of respite in our day, and perhaps you do as well. So once again, check out our minisodes every Friday, where we're going to be talking a lot more about resources you can check out in relation to the movement to abolish policing as we understand it in America. Now, Mark Calloway, his personal views are terrible. Oh, yes. Everybody else introduce yourselves.
Did you even introduce yourself?
I did, yes.
Okay. That guy. I'm Dr. Ben Abelson, professor of philosophy at Mercy College. Big-time fan of professional wrestling.
And my name is Doc Diamondfire. I've been involved in professional wrestling for about 11 years. Been a wrestler, commentator, ring announcer. I've worked several roles backstage. I've done a little bit of everything. And now I'm on this podcast.
I am Katie Bella, a.k.a. Ref Katie on Twitter. That's Katie with a Y. Don't spell it wrong. You won't find me. I'm also
But she'll find you.
I'll find you, yes. I also go by over here counting on Twitch. I like to play Pokemon games. And I just want to say I love each and every one of you, except Captain Romance.
Sometimes we have some episodes that Katie's not on, and whenever that happens, whenever she's not here, know that it is because she is out hunting bounty.
Yes, hunting bounty.
Hunting bounty on people who misspell my name, yes.
Yes.
It's hard to find paper towels around,
I know. I've been able to find, the no-good paper towels. Of the few things that I feel like I need to spend the extra $1 on, it's the premium paper towels. But, this is a special time. And it is a very minor thing to have to make do with. So there you go.
Say there's actually quite an abundance of paper products around right now. Because I think every store is just stocked up thinking that the apocalypse is coming.
The apocalypse, when the apocalypse happens, if it's the rapture, then you know who's going? Shawn Michaels. Hold on, I'm waiting to receive an award for best transition.
It's in the mail, Evan.
Yep, it's come in now. I have it now.
It's going to come slowly descending from the ceiling, wearing a white hat.
So my big question at the beginning of Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 is Shawn sexy for God now? Is that the basic idea?
Yes.
He's a sexy boy. He's God's sexy boy.
He's a male stripper that found Jesus but did not stop being a male stripper.
That flawless transition from descending from the heavens into I think I'm cute.
Well, it really is if he's coming down and it's like God sent me here and filled me with purpose, and that purpose is to have sex with your wife in exchange for money while she's in Vegas on a trip by herself because she needed some time.
There was someone with a sign that said, "I lost my wife to HBK," or "My wife left me for HBK." No, but
I don't doubt it.
We got the Heartbreak Taker, the light to Undertaker's dark, in that entrance.
Yeah.
So
They very purposefully did that.
yeah. So I mean, this fucking match at WrestleMania 25, you can see, like, in some ways is the culmination of WrestleMania to that point.
It really is.
Which makes it even more baffling that they didn't put it on last. They put it on like really early.
What
in
was
the show.
last this year?
Fucking Orton Triple H, one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time.
Oh, this Mania it's worth noting that this is a bad WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this match is a shining beacon in a steaming pile of shit. This is the Mania where literally they did an entire, like, a 20-something woman diva battle royale, inviting women back that hadn't wrestled there for years and years, and didn't give them their own entrance, had a shitty Kid Rock concert before it, and a man in transphobic drag won.
Yeah.
2009
And-
was a dark time.
Yes.
The Kid Rock performance was just unforgivable. It was so fucking long. And
It was so long.
I remembered Punk Mysterio being on this card, but it wasn't. But whatever other matches I wanted to see were cut way short to give ample time to Mr. Rock.
There was a Kid Rock concert in 2009 here. Like,
Yes.
I know that
This
he
is wrestling.
I know that he maintained a shocking level of popularity outside of like mainstream rock, I guess, but I did not realize that in 2009 he was still playing at WrestleMania levels of popular.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
No, definitely. His every album he's put out has been big. He's leaned more and more into country, which we just don't get that exposed to in New York. But no, Kid Rock is one of the biggest stars in the history of American music. I've said this before on this podcast, and it's a take that isn't usually said because whenever you talk about Kid Rock, it's about the man, but he has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to music. He is not afraid to completely change up what he thinks is going to happen next, and he's been right. So, yeah, he was big enough for this, but the crowd didn't care. I mean, as big as he is, he can fill arenas, not stadiums, on his own, and this was a stadium of wrestling
That
fans
wanted to
from
see
around the world.
wrestling.
Yeah, and if they had just had him come out between the matches and sing one song, it might have been interesting. But no, he did like a 20-minute medley of his greatest hits, and the crowd was not with it any of the
Was
time.
it a full
because
20
It
minutes?
was a misfire. Oh, he went on
It
for
felt
so
like
long,
it.
man.
And
He went
and
on
this
for
was
so
back
long.
when they only had like 4 hours or whatever it was to do the pay.
Only
only
4
4
hours.
hours.
Oh,
of
Jinx.
WrestleMania.
I know, but
Jesus.
now they have
Yeah.
unlimited time to pack in as much
Yes,
extra
this is true.
garbage as they want to.
Shawn Michaels makes it to the ring doing his Jesus stripper routine.
So wait, a little bit more
Yeah.
like background here. Like, I think we really
Okay.
need to set the epicness of the stage. You have Shawn Michaels, pretty much unarguably the greatest performer in the history of WrestleMania.
Yes.
Since he came back in 2002, he had the best match on WrestleMania every year. People might say even going back to his appearances in like WrestleMania 10, 11, and 12 may have been the best matches on those cards as well. 10 is the real arguable one there.
Yeah.
But he actually recently said that the ladder match is the only match people remember from that show.
Yeah, it's not true.
Well, he didn't say that recently. He said that in an interview in like 2000, 2001, before he came back.
Yeah.
But yeah, which is this kind of thing he might have said that. But anyway, so greatest WrestleMania performer in history against The Undertaker, who at this point had a streak of 16-0. And like they've both, well into their late 30s, if not 40s at this point, but still at the top of their game. And they had what many people, I think Katie is one of them, think is the greatest wrestling match of all time. And hard to argue.
It's basically perfect. Even the one botch I can think of in the match, which is a fairly notorious one, and I'm curious to see if Evan knows what I'm talking about here, just adds to the match.
The rough spots make it better, yeah.
There were a couple things where I was like, I don't know if that should happen. I would not be surprised if this is sort of a platonic ideal of a certain kind of wrestling match, because I felt like I have watched a boring version of this match dozens of times.
Yes,
between different wrestlers at different points in history. And I kept waiting for the moment where I was going to get bored, because a lot of the things that happen in this match are things that happened in matches where I get bored.
It's a long match, too. What's the official runtime of it? Can someone look?
I think it's at least 40 minutes, but it doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't feel that long, no.
The energy, like, slowly kind of, the energy drops while the intensity increases over time, which is sort of a gamble. Listeners, if you're hearing insane robot death noises in the background, that's just, we have a stove that's like 50,000 years old. That's all. Don't worry about it.
They have a stove. It's actually possessed by a demonic spirit that they have to exercise once a week. What's his name again?
I can't say his name. I keep telling you that if I say his name, then I get additional nightmares. That's what it says in the book.
Oh, she knows.
So
the book that was in the stove when you moved in.
So yes. So the point.
It lays at the bottom. You can cook up to 800 degrees in that stove, but that book remains cool to the touch.
I forgot. What was I saying? Oh yes,
the match. The
These
match
are unsolved
time.
mysteries with
The match.
wrestling. What was the match time?
30:44.
30:44. Plus another 10 minutes for entrances, I'm sure.
Oh, at least. It's the Undertaker's entrance and like Shawn Michaels' entrance plus faux Undertaker entrance on top of that. Which, by the way, Doc, you were going to talk about more before I cut you off.
Yeah, I was gonna just to move forward from Shawn's entrance. Taker's entrance is spectacular in his own right, although it is this. I hate to put it this way, but it's kind of the standard Taker Mania entrance. At the time, a big part of his gimmick, for most of his career, a big part of his gimmick is that he had like the best entrance in wrestling. You know, in the arena and all the lights go out, and at WrestleMania with the stadium, they could simulate lightning and thunder and dry ice. And Taker is so poised; he doesn't move an inch that's not calculated.
I wanted to
all the
ask
way to the
Evan
ring.
about that actually.
Yeah.
Did you get
What?
bored of the Undertaker's entrances? You've had to watch 6 10-minute Undertaker entrances so far.
They're always so long.
This one I appreciated. This one, it was really good. I started to get the feeling in the other two that we watched that the worse the Undertaker got at physically at wrestling, the longer and more epic they made his entrances to make up for it.
There's something to be
Pretty
said
much.
for that, yeah.
Exemplified by the third match we watched today, which was shorter than his entrance was.
Yes. Most of the act was the entrance. That's what the people wanted to see.
The structure of this match, I feel like I've seen it a million times, where it's like these guys like slowly beating the life out of each other until they can barely move, until they're just lying there on the ground and like occasionally doing struggling to get up, and every few minutes doing another move to each other. And normally that really doesn't work, but these two guys absolutely make it work, and I was thrilled. I knew how it ended just because I knew that the Undertaker had a long streak, and I knew that it was broken at some point. I actually did not know who broke it until we watched the match.
Cool.
But I knew that it wasn't this early, so I knew he was going to win this match. But it was still there was a point where
I wanted to say really quick. One thing that I actually thought while watching the match, like, here's a part where Evan would be bored, but was not, because of how great a performer Shawn Michaels is.
And Undertaker
So that
as well.
and we're going to talk about this spot a lot, but that point where he's waiting for Undertaker to get counted out would be incredibly boring, just waiting for the referee to count. But Shawn is sitting there in the corner, like hoping and praying and super anxious about Undertaker getting counted out, and he totally made that moment.
We noted that when
Shawn Michaels.
Well, we noted that when watching it too. Katie noted that this was the time that they had to rest after doing 20 minutes into a match.
Yeah, this was their rest break.
Yeah, and Shawn, just through his character acting, reviving the ref and getting the ref in the ring, they bought the Undertaker a few minutes to lay there after splatting onto his head like that. And Shawn bought himself some time so that they could do the third act, which they needed to do afterwards.
They both take kind of wicked falls at different points during the match.
Insane.
Like, Taker takes his infamous one, but there's one with Shawn, too, where he tries to leap on the Undertaker, like, outside of the ring, and the Undertaker swats him away like a fly.
there is...
Yeah, they're back to back. Shawn goes for this like really crooked, like wild looking moonsault, which is unusual for him. He's usually very controlled in that. I don't know if that was part of the point. And
I
as
think
you
it
say,
was.
Katie,
I think it was.
Undertaker swats him out of the way and just lets him splat on the outside of the ring.
I think that's exactly how that spot was supposed to go. I think that was completely like planned.
And it's following that where Undertaker sits up in the ring and then goes for his dive, which, you know, is always incredible to watch this 300-pound plus dude just leap all the way over the top rope. But this time,
So
he was supposed to be caught by the cameraman, who was Sim Snuka, Jimmy
Oh, that was
Snuka's
Sim
son.
Snuka.
Yeah, and he fucked up and almost fucking killed The Undertaker. But, as Katie was already saying, that semi-botch there with The Undertaker landing on his head really kind of made the match. Because it showed that Undertaker was willing to put his life on the line in order to win the match.
This match was lousy with sickening thuds. The sounds that both of them made when they hit. That was why, because the fact that The Undertaker's one was clearly a botch, where it looked like he landed directly on his head and almost died, retroactively made me think that the Shawn one was a botch. Because I saw the Shawn one and I was like, oh man, that's brutal. But they probably planned that, and then, yeah.
I mean, both moves, of course, were planned.
Sure.
And to say they're botches, you know, if something's a little messy, it's not necessarily a botch. What was kind of really was a botch was when Shawn Michaels reverses the tombstone into a DDT. And that didn't look great. Like, they didn't really get the DDT clean at all. But because of where it was in the match and how Shawn was just sort of wildly doing whatever he could to win, it also kind of made sense. He got out of the tombstone. That's what mattered.
It sold it to the crowd, and it certainly worked, whether or not it was the crispest thing in the world. So to Evan, to your point about a lot of matches are like this and not as gripping. You know, they start out really hot. They start out with a very fast pace, and unlike a lot of matches that do the slow, like, big moves thing towards the end, they rev it up enough that instead of thinking, okay, they've stopped moving, you start really thinking, well, the next move could be the last move in the match. And they manage to keep that going over and over again. And if you're able to keep the crowd's attention like the next move is going to be the last move in the match over the course of several moves in a row, then you're having an incredible match. You fully have the crowd excited and at attention.
And the finish is finally just that sweet, like, sequence where Undertaker catches Shawn in midair into the tombstone. Yeah.
But Shawn kicks out of the first tombstone.
So first, Shawn does his classic skin the cat, where he pulls himself into the ring by the top rope, and Undertaker catches him out of that, hits him with the tombstone, 1, 2, and Shawn kicks out. And Evan, you talk a lot about this specific emotion that every wrestler needs to have.
Yes.
Right? Where like, what do I have to do in order to beat him? And Undertaker has possibly the best one of those faces ever in this match when Shawn kicks out.
I mean, it's just because he's, like, gently resting his head on Shawn's ass, staring into the camera, his eyes just filled with sadness.
Oh, that is a famous shot. That is a famous shot of Taker there. It got memed to death.
And then it's after that he gets up, and then he takes his tank top off from the top, as if he's, like, taking off like a sleeveless dress, sort of. And
he's just taking the straps down.
And it was like Undertaker's like, all right, like, I'm gonna have to go titties out for this next part, because that's how you deliver maximum pain to somebody.
That was a big Kurt Angle thing, taking the straps down. Or no, I guess it was originally Lawler, right?
Well, it was a long-standing thing, like in the territories, that it's a thing baby faces would do to indicate that they were firing up. Lawler was the biggest of them in the 70s and the 80s. He knew, because he would wear the one-arm strap, and when he took the strap down, it was time to fire up. Kurt Angle was like the last guy to do it, and he kind of did a parody of it, where he would take the straps down and fire up, and the crowd would cheer. Then he'd put the straps back on and continue wrestling.
And then take him down Kurt a second time.
Yeah, he was so self-aware about the humor in his serious act that he would do it twice in a row sometimes, and the crowd would be like, "Oh, you Kurt Angle." It's like, yeah.
Yeah. So, really, like, there's nothing more you could want from the WrestleMania match.
Yeah.
Like, you get the big dramatic finish with the big kickouts, the near falls off of finishers. You get, like, the death-defying dives. There's also some really cool little more subtle sequences at the beginning. Like, very close to the beginning, Shawn does a flip off the ropes and lands and acts like he's tweaked his knee, like he's hurt himself, which is a classic thing that wrestlers do where they play possum. They act like they've hurt themselves, the guy gets distracted, and they jump them. Undertaker doesn't fall for it for a second.
No,
and
he
just
knows
keeps
Shawn.
charging at him. But the ref fell for it. And that cost Undertaker 1 second that allowed Shawn to get the advantage in that 1 second.
Referee Marty Elias, by the way.
Marty Elias. Yeah, that was a cool, clever little thing.
At one point, Shawn leaps directly into a chokehold, which I thought looked really cool.
Yeah.
I also this is very abstract, and I've just been in my off time, like getting high and watching Star Trek as in an attempt to relax. And whenever these guys do these big archetypical sort of moves, and they're doing their finishers on each other over and over again, in these big sort of symbolic moments, it kind of reminded me of Darmok, the episode of Next Generation that is cool to watch and sort of, but then if you think about it for like 1 second, you're like, how would this alien society exist at all? But the one where like
which one is that?
That's the one where there's a species that only speaks in like I don't even know what you would call it. I guess they only speak in like by describing parables to each other.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That's a famous episode.
Yeah. So it's the whole Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. And he's trying to say hello, basically, and their concept of how to say hello to each other is to recite like
You have
archetypical.
to be like these two people that met one time.
It is.
Yeah.
This is a reach on my part. I'm aware of that.
Right.
They're an entire species that only speaks to each other and pooping into buckets and juggling their balls.
Yeah. That's just humans. But
So,
Okay, yeah, that's the human condition.
Evan, are you saying that it's like in these matches, it's kind of like a lot of sound and fury signifying very little?
More that it's like they are, by the end, when they're just doing their sort of these moves on each other that are I don't know, I guess like representative of who they are as figures, and are sort of like, and I was kind of thinking about your archetypical wrestling move concept and things like that. I don't know. It's maybe I guess it was sort of, it's like a giant battle of metaphors between mythological figures. The mythological figure of death and the mythological figure of gigolohood that has existed for thousands of years.
I get what you're saying, and you're right.
To me, it's like Jim Starlin's Marvel Comics, where you have Thanos and the Avatar of Death, and then the avatars of order and chaos and eternity, all staring at each other. And
I get what you're saying, Evan. I think a problem with modern wrestling a lot of the time is that too much of it is referential to things that you are expected to not only have seen, but seen and fully digested, so that you get every reference possible. And if you don't, then you don't know like half the stuff they're talking about, which is a problem. It's one of the things we're trying to explain with this podcast,
things, in this match in particular, that like if you had been paying attention to the product even just a little while before this, you would have gotten like, remember when we watched the Royal Rumble that came down to Shawn and Taker at the end? They did the thing where they're both down, Shawn does the kip up, and then Undertaker does the sit up. And you might have been expecting that to happen in WrestleMania 25, but they don't do it. Shawn does the kip up.
Yep.
Goes to the top rope for the elbow, and then Undertaker does the sit up. You're waiting for it. If you'd seen the Rumble thing, you were waiting for that to happen, maybe just disappointed that it didn't happen a moment ago, and then they do a variation on it. So that's always fun.
And also,
Right.
like, if you saw the Rumble, you would have
Yeah.
wanted to see this match.
The Rumble kind of foreshadowed this.
Because
a
it
bit.
wasn't even a match that people were thinking about until they saw the two of them in the ring together and went, hey, there hasn't been a Shawn Michaels Undertaker match in a long time.
There's this moment towards the end of the match where they're clinging
Yeah.
to each other in order to stand. Like, Undertaker looks kind of punch drunk. He's facing off in the wrong direction and shit. And then eventually he finds Shawn, and they both rise up in the middle of the ring, clinging to each other. And the crowd's going insane. And I got a totally different energy.
Speaking
off
of
that
punch
moment.
drunk.
Like, I got, like, end of Evangelion kind of vibes there. They were channeling some crazy spirits in that moment.
There's also a point where one of the commentators says, Undertaker charges at Shawn Michaels and Michaels kicks him. And one of the commentators says, Michaels using his amazing ability to strike with his feet when you least expect it. And I was just like, do you mean kicking? Do you mean he kicked him?
Yo, there are some really dumb calls, and there's one really amazing call that we forgot to mention. All right, so Michael Cole, the submission hold that Shawn Michaels was doing was not the figure four taught to him by Ric Flair. It was his weird, like, inverted figure four thing that I think he developed when he was feuding with Benoit, maybe, so he'd have a submission hold.
I think so, yeah. He also does the crossface.
He does the crossface, yeah.
That Shawn Michaels and Triple H both started doing as soon as Benoit died. They both just started doing the crossface.
But the amazing call in there is when Shawn kicks out of the tombstone and JR's like, I just had an out-of-body experience.
I remember that. That's amazing. I also want to call out JR at the beginning of the match when Taker's coming to the ring and the camera goes on Shawn Michaels and Jim Ross is like, this young man has to face the Undertaker. I'm like, he's 45, dude.
He's 40. Yeah, he's at like his mid-40s by this point. JR, where the hell have you been?
Like, I get what Jim Ross was. I don't want to give Jim Ross too much crap for something like that. I get what he's going, but come on. Shawn Michaels.
He also said that Shawn was ascending from the rafters at the beginning when he was clearly descending. Yeah. Anyway, this match is fucking awesome. I think in large part because what Shawn and Undertaker both say is that during Shawn's first run in the company, they didn't like each other. I mean, a lot of people didn't like Shawn at that time, but they always had great in-ring chemistry. We watched that Hell in a Cell match and whatever. Now, at this time, which was 2009, by then, Shawn, according to a lot of people, had really changed, was a much easier guy to get along with. And so they actually were really good friends by this point and still had the great in-ring chemistry. So they were able to produce this real masterpiece of a match.
The next match we watched was very notable, but it was not a masterpiece.
Yeah, before...
I once again state, speaking of punch drunk.
Yeah.
Right. So before we get to that, like, this is the deep streak, what we get to when we get to Shawn. It's, the streak... Undertaker is clearly getting pretty old. He looks great in this match with Shawn Michaels. He has another classic with Shawn Michaels the next year. He has a pretty good match with Triple H the year after that. He has another, even better match with Triple H the year after that with Shawn as the referee, and they're in Hell in a Cell, and they call it the end of an era, and the three of them celebrate at the end of it, and it's this great moment.
We could have just watched all of those, but
We decided not
that's,
to put you through that.
I
Evan.
appreciate
it's
that.
a lot.
Yeah,
Those matches are all amazing, but they're better watched once every year at WrestleMania.
Then he has
instead of all four at once.
Then he has a great match with CM Punk the year after the second Triple H match, which I was there for live. I think my favorite four matches of the streak are actually the match with Edge that we watched, this match with Shawn Michaels, the CM Punk match, and probably the first match with Triple H back at WrestleMania 17.
Yeah, that was an eternity previously at this point, it seems.
So, he's had all this series of like 5, really like 7 if you count like Edge and Batista the year before, like 7 amazing matches in a row. And so, as a fan, it's hard to think, oh, he might want to wind it down at this point. Like, he might be getting tired of doing this. We're all thinking, who would be the coolest person to beat him? We're not thinking that it would be Brock Lesnar.
No.
The highlight of this match comes very early in the promo before it even starts. when
Heyman's the best,
when
isn't
Paul
he?
Heyman utters a fantastic sentence when he is describing Brock Lesnar and specifically describing Brock Lesnar's feelings and his relationship to feelings. He says, "The affirmation he seeks is your contempt." I was like, yeah,
It really
that's great.
is. That's poetic.
That's very Heyman.
Everything else about this match was just shitting into my eyes.
It's not a good match.
I was so upset.
It's terrible.
So long. Undertaker is tired. His mystique is gone. I said in the fucking last episode, he should never not have long hair.
Two things about everything you just said, Evan. One, yes, his hair is stupid in this, and I don't like it. Two, he's not tired. He's horrifically concussed.
Oh, no.
But even before
The Undertaker cannot hold on. The Undertaker cannot remember this match. He says he can remember coming to the ring, and that's
What happened?
it.
So-
we're not sure exactly when it happened. I think it might have been that first belly-to-belly suplex
I think
where he
so
landed
too.
on his head.
You look at him, and he doesn't land like really obviously like accordion, like comically on his head, but he doesn't take it right. He lands like on the side of his head and his neck, and that will concuss you.
I thought it was the tackle on the outside of the ring, but
might have been that too.
It might have
again,
been.
I'm not sure. But here's the thing: concussed or not, from the very beginning of this match, this is not the same performer as the Shawn Michaels match. Like, the energy is totally different.
This is definitely where he starts noticeably slowing down, but it's like those first 5 minutes or so, he's like just kind of slow, you can see the moment Undertaker leaves the building, so to speak. It's when Brock goes right before Brock goes for the F5 for the first time. He doesn't hit it. But like right around the time Brock attempts the first F5, like right before that, you see something in Taker's head just leave and not come back. You start to see him get like confused. He clearly like starts losing grasp of where he is. So whatever it happened must have been like a couple minutes before that, because it had to set in, you know?
Amazingly, he still works the whole match. Like, yes, Lesnar helps him a lot, but like even like the Kimura reversal was still kind of slick. Kudos to Brock Lesnar for taking a fucking tombstone.
Kudos to Brock Lesnar in general for like carrying Undertaker through most of this match, because Undertaker didn't even know where he was anymore, you know?
Right. As a fan, this match is like long and boring, but as a worker watching what's happening, like Brock Lesnar spoon feeds this match to The Undertaker, knowing that they have so much time they needed to kill and the importance of the finish. And he got Taker, other than the concussion, safely from then to the end.
Do you think
so I can commend him on that?
Taker says he doesn't blame Brock. He's like, whatever happened, I don't blame Brock Lesnar.
You don't blame the people you're in the
Do
ring
you
with.
think that Brock knows what's happening? Like, do you think he
Yes,
recognizes?
as an
oh,
athlete,
shit.
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Very
I
much.
honestly think they should have cut this match shorter.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Given
I'm
what
not
the
gonna.
finish was going to be,
Yeah.
they wanted it to be as good as possible,
But I'm not saying they should have been made it shorter initially. I'm saying once it was clear Undertaker was not there mentally anymore, they should have like chipped away at the time a little bit. But it's
They
a
could
very
have
hard
cut several
call.
minutes of spots out of the middle there, because it's an interesting thing watching the crowd in this match, and the people who analyze these things analyze the crowd way more than the match in this match, because the match is a guy spoon feeding another guy who got concussed. The crowd was into it for the first, 5-6 minutes because it's the Undertaker streak match at WrestleMania. Then the crowd cools off a bit because it's not a really good streak match, but they're still, impressed at WrestleMania and the magnitude of the stars. And then there's 10 minutes where the crowd is completely dead because the Undertaker is not fighting back.
When
Yeah,
I was
he's not there.
watching this with my girlfriend at the time, Anna, we were sitting there, we were talking about who should get the streak match the next year when the finish happened. We were not paying to the match at all.
This is one of those things where it's such an important moment in wrestling history. It's one of those questions people ask: where were you when Brock Lesnar pinned The Undertaker? I was alone. I was being a lame ass alone in my room pirating this show off the internet. And I've never been more happy that I was unpopular at that time than at that moment because I needed to be alone to mentally deal with
It
it.
really
The crazy thing about it was that, we had been watching these streak matches every year. And, you assume The Undertaker is going to win just because it's the streak. And it's such a big draw for WrestleMania. How could they end it? And especially, we had it in our mind as fans that it was going to be some newcomer who needed the rub by beating Undertaker or something like that. Lesnar, we didn't realize what they were planning on doing with Lesnar. That he was going to be this unstoppable killer who was going to just be the champion for years and years.
Yeah,
He had traded some matches with Triple H. He lost to John Cena his first match back. We never would have thought. In hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, Undertaker would want to lose to the legit fighter, who has, makes it look
Right.
like, oh, you needed like an unstoppable beast who actually could kill people in order to beat the Undertaker. But that sort of like realistic thinking isn't what wrestling fans think most of the time. We think about what we would want to happen, not what would make the most sense.
I gotta say, like, watching everybody's face, because it feels like everybody checked out of the match, right? Everybody was bored.
Yeah.
I certainly checked out. And then when it happens, like, the shots of everybody's faces, like, you really wonder if in moments like this, like, Vince asks himself, like, oh, did we piss them off in the right way? Like, is this...
Oh, no. I'm gonna disagree with you hard on that one because two things.
I
First of all,
I don't know.
Crowd
I'm not
checked
making
out.
a statement one way or the other. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were, and it's okay if you were. This is why
I
we're
think
talking.
this is exactly
so
the
the-
reaction Vince wanted. Yeah.
Yes.
So the crowd checked out, but the crowd completely assumed, no matter how bad this match was, Taker was winning. And you saw this explosion of emotion when the three came down. Them getting the shots of everybody so shocked, they replayed that over and over and over again.
Especially
This
that,
match, yeah,
Oh,
the black guy in the white shirt with
Yes.
the look on his face, like, yeah, he's like, this match made Brock Lesnar, and it went off exactly how they wanted it to.
And-
The match itself is a piece of crap, but the fact that at the end of it made it more shocking that Brock
this
won.
match made Brock Lesnar? Hadn't he been around for like 12
This
years?
This match made Brock Lesnar into the beast incarnate top guy that he still is today, since coming back.
I refer to it as like the loudest silence ever in wrestling because they're not booing, they're not cheering. I mean, there's a little bit of booing, but everyone's just too shocked to really like have a really loud reaction. And it's not that there's no reaction; it's the biggest reaction of modern wrestling. It's just it's not booing, it's not cheering, it's just
Everyone
shock.
goes,
Everyone's
oh! And then when they put, you can't see it on screen, but when they put the 21-1 up on the screen, you hear the crowd react again, like, oh, this is official. Oh, this is not a mistake.
That's when it set in for me because I'm like, oh my god, is this like a mistake? Are they gonna undo this? Like, was this a botch? And then they put the graphic of 21 up, and I'm like, oh no, they paid someone to make that.
Yeah.
So later in this WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan wins the title. And the plan, and that was a huge moment for the fans because they had really pushed him into that spot, or at least felt that they did. And so the original plan, it ended up being Cena, but the original plan was for Lesnar to then just completely squash Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam. And apparently, in the words of Vince or one of the people close to him, the idea was to break the fans' hearts. And that was the idea of this whole thing, of breaking the streak and then killing Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam, was that Brock Lesnar was going to be the guy who broke the WWE Universe's heart. And that would make him the main heel for the foreseeable future, which he still is.
Yeah, years later. This pushed him completely over the top. Now it's like you don't ever assume anyone's going to beat Brock Lesnar. And even if you do assume someone's going to beat Brock Lesnar, if Lesnar still wins, you kind of think, all right, Lesnar was just going to win anyway. If he hadn't beaten the Undertaker, that aura would not be there, regardless of how bad this match was.
Right. I take this to be like the third most important moment in WWE history.
Yeah, what were the first two?
The Andre the Giant body slam and Foley going off the Hell in a Cell.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the match being so shitty. If it hadn't been so shitty, this might have been the Undertaker's last match. If he had really knocked it out of the park with Lesnar, the streak was broken, that would have been it. But instead, this was the beginning of a really rough, sad road for The Undertaker, which has just begun to be revealed in this series, The Last Ride, this documentary series about him. Because, at WrestleMania 26, he beat Shawn Michaels in a retirement match. And that was it for Shawn Michaels. He came back for one little match later, but really he got the end of his career, the picture perfect storybook retirement ending. Ric Flair had gotten it a couple of years before that. Undertaker has been chasing this moment ever since then. He didn't get it with Brock because the match was shitty. Then he came back. He had a couple more WrestleMania matches. Eventually he had the match with Roman Reigns, which he thought was going to be his swan song. But the match was shitty. Then he had a second hip surgery and came back for this third match we watched.
Same hip or has he had surgery?
No,
both
other
hips?
hip.
Okay.
Other hip. Both hips have been replaced now. He comes back for this match against John Cena, and all of a sudden, as we see in this match, he's a little bit back to his former self. He's more like the Taker of maybe Mania 28 or 29. Not
or
of
at
30
least he
to
is
33.
Or at least he is for the 4 minutes of motion that happened in this match.
Well, that's the thing. He was able to have a good performance against Cena, but because it was so short, it still wasn't the ending that he wanted.
It's the same thing. It's like, when a TV show gets canceled and then they bring it back, occasionally that it has been good, but almost always it's terrible. You know what I mean? Like, you just want it to be like, don't come at me and tell me that the new Arrested Developments are funny. Okay, you botched the finish. Don't come back and try to finish it, man. That was it. That was the finish. It's not.
And for a wrestler,
get the cast together for a special or a retrospective or a one-off or put a couple of the characters in another show, but don't expect to recapture the magic.
And for a wrestler, every year that he gets older, the chances that he's going to put on this all-time classic as his last match get less and less, right?
Yeah. So he has to stop chasing it. He can still do what he can do as long as he wants, really, but his days of being the big main eventer have been over for a long time. The fact that they had to do the Boneyard match was a real godsend for him because he couldn't expose himself not being able to have a good match with AJ Styles, which is seemingly impossible, but it's possible.
He thought he'd have the great match with Styles, and the fact that it became the Boneyard match robbed him again of the ending that he wanted. So now he's going to have to do it at next year's Mania, which I think is what this Last Ride series is eventually leading towards.
Probably.
I mean, this match with John Cena, while it did violate one of my fundamental rules, which is that the intro should not be longer than the match. I might be exaggerating slightly here, but I don't think I'm off by more than 30 seconds. Yeah.
You're not. No.
Well, especially if you include the whole thing with Elias and all that.
Yeah. Well, you gotta, as a wrestling fan, something's up when Cena gets all his shit in on Elias before the match.
Well, and I will say this match, I mean, it's like a couple minutes, Undertaker does his thing. It does seem like it is hard for people. There are matches with John Cena that are bad, certainly, but John Cena does seem to be very good at making his partner look good. Like that is a skill he unquestionably has.
I was gonna say there's a lot of backstory to this match that doesn't come through if you just watch the match. Cena had been spent the last 2 months leading up to WrestleMania trying goad the Undertaker out of retirement. I call this match you woke Grandpa up from his nap and he's pissed. Because it's like Undertaker had put his hat and his coat down in the ring of the year before after his match. Who had he faced in that?
Wasn't that the Roman match?
That was the Roman match.
Yeah, he had put his shit down in the ring. He had like hugged his wife in the front row. He had walked off, and he hadn't been seen since. And like Cena had spent the last month being like, "What, are you done? Are you old now? What? I want to fight you. I want to fight you." To no response, to like nothing. And like we had
Specifically,
watched the match, where the was it the which match was it where you see someone like poke him and be like, we get, you got to get to the back, man. You got to get to the
That
back.
was
There's
Charlotte
he's here.
Asuka.
Charlotte
Yeah,
Asuka. Do you
afterwards.
remember that at all, Evan? There's this weird interlude
Kinda.
where they like
Cena's
cuts
been
to
sitting in
Cena.
the audience the whole
Yes,
show.
yes, okay, I do remember that.
This is the same event.
Okay.
This is the same event, and like I personally love this match because I called this completely. We have a good
did.
story about this, Doc, that we can tell in a bit. But back to what Evan
I
thinks.
feel like we've done like 6 matches from this WrestleMania.
We've done 3.
Yeah.
We've done AJ Nakamura, Charlotte Asuka, and this one.
3 is the 6 of the under 5 numbers. So in that sense, I'm correct.
We've done 4 from 33.
Oh, is John Cena yet to emerge from the Funhouse? Is he still in that dimension, or
He has made
We
no
haven't seen him.
appearances. No, none.
Missing.
I've only seen him in
Yes.
commercials for things.
Yeah.
I think
for,
he's
like,
doing
random
State
things.
Farm.
What's
right
that one
now,
commercial?
maybe?
He's like
I could be wrong.
State Farm.
That's a good.
He's, like, talking to an animal or
Wacky insurance commercials are a good entry point for actors like that, where it's like, well, I have kind of a name. Let's see if I look okay in this ad, where if I don't look okay, then that's the point.
Wait, Evan, what did you think of Elias?
He seemed fun. Is his character? He's the guy at a party with an acoustic guitar who can't really play it. Like, yeah, that's
Pretty
like,
much.
I'm
Nailed
I'm
it.
sure that
Nailed
if
it.
Vince wasn't cheap, they would have gotten Wonderwall so he could play it. Like, yeah.
Right, exactly.
They called him the Drifter at first. Like he's just, some guy who travels around. Like the Drifter seemed to be the persona he wanted to put forward. Even though he's just
Right.
douchey acoustic guitar guy, he wanted to look like this traveling songsmith or whatever. And the crowd would just be like, drift away, drift away, which is
I think
awesome.
he was trying to go for like dangerous hitchhiker kind of thing,
yeah.
which might have
And
been
he's just-
cool.
He's great because he can just come out and do his shtick. He doesn't have to have a match. He doesn't have to be a babyface or a heel, or he just comes out and does his shtick, and someone kicks his ass. And they can do it for as long as they want.
He's been on the roster for like 3 years. He so rarely has any matches. He is a true anomaly of the modern WWE. His character has barely changed since the day he came in. And Ben, you're right about all of that. He just comes in and fills in whatever needs to be done. He's an ass to be kicked. Very occasionally they'll have him like win a match because, they need to keep some heat on him.
I was trying to remember the name of the song, some of the songs on his album that he put out. The ballad, I think the one song was "The Ballad of Every Town I've Ever Been In," about how they all suck.
Right. What was the story you were alluding to earlier, Katie, about this?
Very good friend of ours, whose favorite wrestler of all time is The Undertaker, was at this party with us that we were watching the show at. And first of all, I just want to state that I called this match completely. I said it right before it started, like, I hope Undertaker just comes out and beats the shit out of John Cena and pins him in the ring in like 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, and anyway, our friend is just like mad that this match is happening. He wanted Undertaker to bow out gracefully. He's pissed, and the match comes on, and through the next 5 minutes, you can just see this angry frown of his just slowly turn into this shit-eating grin. And I just look him after the match. I'm like, hey man, so what'd you think? He's like, if they were going to bring Undertaker back at all, that was perfect.
Yeah. No, and like Cena at this point already knew he was starting to soften his schedule and try and be more of an actor. And he was determined in the last few years of his active career to put over just about as many people as possible. He's starting to get credit for that. And the Undertaker was one of them. The Undertaker really helped him when he early in his career. They always had good chemistry together. And like what Cena, Cena didn't lose anything by losing this match.
No.
Cena couldn't lose anything ever if he tried. It would just be another shade of it all. So great. He helped the Undertaker by not making him wrestle for 25 minutes.
Yeah. And I think they did this match. They played it safe.
Right.
Like, they didn't know what Undertaker was capable of at this point. They didn't want him to have another disappointing stinker. So they were like, well, you look like you're in great shape. Why don't we keep it short so that you're in great shape for the whole match?
In fact, one of the things that Cena was using to call out the Undertaker is he's like, oh, so Undertaker hasn't been seen. There's rumors like he has surgery, that he's broken. Here's this picture from the Undertaker's Instagram. And it's the Undertaker posted a picture on his Instagram of him at the gym with like jagged abs and huge biceps. And he's like, the Undertaker's in great shape. He's just scared. Wow, the Undertaker. I'll beat him up. He did not beat him up. He got in one back suplex so that he could start doing his sequence and not succeed.
Well, it was awesome because he went for the 5-knuckle shuffle and Undertaker sat
Immediately.
up. And then he like stopped in his tracks.
No, he bumped on his ass, treading backwards.
Right. He bumps on his. Cena does a great job of looking terrified. This entire match. Yeah. So just going back to the streak for a bit. The streak was this magical kind of thing for wrestling fans. We fucking believed in it. And there's something to it that's real. That Undertaker really was on top that entire time, was the right guy to go over in every single one of those WrestleMania matches.
It's not like we were sitting there like, man, I wish the streak had ended last year. Randy Orton should have beaten him. No, that wasn't the deal ever.
Right. No, we didn't want. We either wanted the streak to never end, or like one of a handful of people who we really loved, like Daniel Bryan or CM Punk, could have broken it and maybe would have been okay with it. But I think we still would have been kind of sad. And really, this WrestleMania, the streak gets broken. Daniel Bryan wins the title. For me, as a super fan of WWE, this was kind of the end. Like, I've still watched after this. I've still been invested in certain things. But from, the WWE as this kind of magical, larger-than-life space that my imagination inhabited for much of my youth, it ceased to be that for me after this show. This was kind of the end for me, the swan song for me.
More than any other like popular artist, right? Like more than any band, more than any author, anything like maybe the exception is like stand-up comedians, but like wrestlers should retire on a high note, because if they keep wrestling past the point where they should stop wrestling, it gets very sad. And it gets very it really destroys any mystique they had handily.
And that's exactly what Undertaker doesn't want. Like he says, he doesn't want someone taking their kid to see him wrestle and be like, yeah, he's okay now, but you should have seen him when he was really good. And that's exactly what's happening. Yeah. That's the really, really sad
thing. That guy, he used to be awesome. He said in one of these, I haven't seen the last Riot series. I've seen a few clips. And he said he was jealous of Shawn Michaels because Shawn was so at peace with his retirement. And Shawn did come back for that one match. He did one of the matches on one of the Saudi Arabia shows.
He got his blood money.
Which is also
a couple
terrible.
Of reasons. Number one, they paid him, I'm sure they paid him 7 figures for the show. He also figured, it's an international match in a place that I've never wrestled before. It's gonna be with a bunch of other old guys because it's a spectacle. He's not expected to be Shawn Michaels. That's why I say, next year at WrestleMania, The Undertaker should finally have his match with Terry Funk. I think that would be the fitting end, because Terry Funk's about 74 or 75, and I bet you that would make a lot more sense than him having a match with, I don't know.
And then at the end, they just both turn to dust and blow away into the sunset. Literally turn into dust.
Literally turn into dust. I mean, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
People think I'm joking. No, Taker, Terry Funk for WrestleMania.
It would be a fitting end to see two men so close to death wrestle, and one of them is the Undertaker.
Right, exactly.
Maybe. Yeah. All right. Do we have any final thoughts before we wrap for today?
The Undertaker has one of the most impressive resumes of any wrestler ever. His matches over the course of a long period of time are like recognizable as the same guys, but they change over time. He's managed to adjust his character many times, but every adjustment of his character is unmistakably the Undertaker. If you're looking to be a character in wrestling, he's a guy to study every step of his career, including, like any good study, the parts that maybe you shouldn't have done. But the parts that you should have done way out... there's way more of them than the things you shouldn't have done. And those are my thoughts on The Undertaker and his wildly varied, long, and successful career.
Yeah, I feel like it seems like he really nailed having a character that is not so specific that he's trapped in something, but not so general that you sort of lose the thread of what the character is.
Yes.
It might be cheating a little bit that he, would, like, I brought this up last time, like, it's like, it's almost cheating to be Death. It's like kids are, like, playing on the playground. It's like, I'm going to be a Ninja Turtle. Well, I'm going to be one of the Power Rangers. These are very outdated references at this point. And then another kid's like, I'm going to be Death.
Right.
Of course, that's the most awesome. I think the fact that he was able to have a loose collection of things associated with him so he could always move in and out, so he could always change the character and still be the same.
And it's the most wrestling thing ever to take this character that shouldn't work for anyone, that's totally unbelievable and supernatural and ridiculous, and do it so well that it draws everybody in.
Yeah.
That everyone suspends disbelief or whatever, gets caught up in the mystique of The Undertaker. It is really sports entertainment at its essence, I think.
It is. It absolutely is.
On the premium episode companion to this, we're going to take a look a bit at a detour in The Undertaker's career where we had seen on like our previous episode, him being like with the Ministry of Darkness. That was unsustainable. He needed to take a sharp turn, take a big risk, and change his character a lot. He was very successful with that, and he was so successful that there was demand for him to return to his original character without resentment for his new one, and he did that too. And we're going to look at that on our premium episode. This would be in the mid-2000s. But we wanted to talk about the streak on here because it's important.
Yes. And WWE doesn't have things like it anymore.
No.
It doesn't have this thing that you look forward to every year, that you believe in, that you're going to get really emotional about if it's lost.
Yeah, that was the last thing.
And it's unfortunate for the little kids growing up as WWE fans today that they don't have that, I think.
Katie, you got any last words?
Just The Undertaker, like what you said, Doc. The Undertaker has just this crazy portfolio. We can do even more episodes. It's just
Yeah,
we got to move on at some point. There was so much more stuff we couldn't even fit in. Some of it we sacrificed for the sake of Evan's sanity.
You could always do like a full streak retrospective and watch, all of his WrestleMania matches.
Oh,
and that would take forever. And the truth is, a lot of the early ones are not very good for reasons we already explained.
A lot of them are like the Giant Gonzalez match.
Yeah, it's some monster that Death has to take care of.
There's 3 periods of the streak, or maybe 4. There's like the early streak from WrestleMania 7 to WrestleMania 14, where he fights Kane, who's, as I think you mentioned in the main episode, Doc, that Kane was the first guy who was there the next year.
Yeah, everybody the Undertaker faced before Kane at WrestleMania was gone before the next WrestleMania.
And then you can say maybe either 14 to 24 is like the mid streak, or you might divide that up somewhere. And then 25 to the end is like the deep
streak.
Late streak.
Yeah.
But the middle streak is when you started to have good matches.
Right. Well, by then it had become the Undertaker's match itself was a big attraction instead of the giant heel was the big attraction and the Undertaker had to be the babyface around them.
I had a question about that. When did they really start talking about the streak? Do you remember?
I think it was around when it got to be like 10-0 or so, just after the whole WCW acquisition. I remember him referencing, I think, when he beats Triple H at WrestleMania 17, but it might have been when he beat Ric Flair at WrestleMania 18. He signals to the camera that it was 10. And from then on, they started mentioning it more and more.
I think the Triple H match was his first really great WrestleMania match,
yeah.
too. So that would make sense also.
As much as I love Sid, yeah.
I thought about watching that one. But
If we really wanted to torture Evan, we should show him Undertaker versus the Dudley Boys.
Oh, man.
Oh,
We should have included that. We should cover that for a mini.
Yeah, well, maybe one of these days when we do some extreme blooper matches, which would be an interesting thing.
Well, stuff to look forward to.
This has been Contesting Wrestling. Normally there's a whole chunk here where I fucking promote all of our shit. We're recording this on June 8th. It's coming out on June 22nd. I hope in those 2 weeks a tremendous amount of progress has been made, but who knows? So I'm just going to tell you to check the show notes where we are going to have a great number of we're going to have links to resources for bail funds you can donate to, resources to educate yourself about doing something that would upset the Undertaker very much, which is abolishing the police as we understand them in America. That's not a qualifier. I'm just saying, like, if you read up on abolition, I mean, they don't. Well, it's a complicated, but yes, abolish and defund the police, and then educate yourself on what that really means. And there will be links to do so in the show.
We warned you about the Paw Patrol, which we really tried to warn you.
Yeah, we fucking said it. It starts
funny.
early.
I was at one of the marches and I saw a little kid with a Paw Patrol backpack, and I had to resist the urge to go up to his parents and be like, this is
They're
the problem,
snitch dogs.
right?
This has been Contesting Wrestling. We love you. Stay safe out there.
Stay safe.
Abolish the police.
What he
Thank
said.
you.
Black Lives Matter.
Black lives do indeed matter.
Black
Yes.
Lives Matter.